What if we told you some of the Caribbean islands are raking in billions of dollars, not just from tourism, but from booming industries like offshore banking, pharmaceuticals, and oil? From offshore banking hubs like the Cayman Islands to oil-rich giants like Guyana, the Caribbean is home to some serious financial powerhouses. In this video, we're diving deep into the 10 largest economies in the Caribbean as measured by total GDP, exploring what really drives these islands' wealth. We'll dive into surprising details, like how a small island with no income tax is pulling in trillions in finance, or how a tiny nation has become the oil capital of the Caribbean. Get ready for some surprising revelations, and let's get right into it with the number 10 entry. The Cayman Islands. Ever looked at your paycheck and wished you never had to pay the income tax? Well, for residents of the Cayman Islands, this isn't just a wish, but the reality. One of the world's most famous tax havens, the territory offers a whopping 0% tax on income. Not only that, there's no corporate tax, no capital gains tax, and no property tax. This means that much of the Cayman Islands economy is under wraps due to privacy laws. After all, if you want people to move their money to your country, you need to guarantee absolute secrecy. You might think that it's literally the recipe for tax evasion, fraud, and money laundering. Well, you're right to think like that, because the Cayman Islands are an escape from many global elites who use this British overseas territory to turn black money into white. Consider the Ugland House, a symbol of financial power, housing over 18,000 companies. Mind you, these aren't just any businesses. Most of them are international investment funds, global joint ventures, and shell companies set up by multinational corporations. In 2008, upon learning that it housed 12,000 US-based corporations, Barack Obama said, quote, "That's either the biggest building in the world or the biggest tax scam in the world." Despite concerns about the island's lack of transparency and accountability, the authorities have repeatedly assured everyone that all financial deals here are above board. Banking and finance contribute nearly 85% of the country's total GDP. The rest is mostly attributed to tourism. The territory has a very high standard of living, nearly $78,000 US of real GDP per capita, and no welfare system. Moving on to number 9, we have Barbados. In the past, Barbados was a low-income country, specializing in sugar production. However, now with improvements in tourism, the manufacturing industry, and offshore finance, the country has seen a drastic economic change. In 2025, Barbados has a projected GDP of over $7 billion US. Since 2018, when it defaulted on bond payments, the country has struggled with one of the highest debt-to-GDP ratios in the world for years. However, the last couple of decades have been a steady uphill climb. Economic diversification has played a key role in the country's growth, while sectors like fishing, forestry, mining, agriculture, and manufacturing contribute to exports. Tourism has emerged as a major economic driver in recent years. However, just when things started to settle down, the pandemic years created more setbacks for the Caribbean nation, increasing debt and causing a recession. In order to fix this issue, the country collaborated with the IMF for an extended debt restructuring plan, which continues to this day. The country has experienced consistent GDP growth since 2021, often outpacing the global average. It has shrunk its debt-to-GDP ratio from 142% in 2017 to 103% in 2024. While Barbados' $7 billion GDP may seem modest compared to giants like Guyana or Trinidad and Tobago, when you adjust for its population of just 286,000, the outlook is much brighter. At number 8, we've got the Bahamas. Another powerhouse in the Commonwealth, the Bahamas is a chain of over 3,000 islands, keys, and islets with a rich and complex history. It became a British Crown colony in the early 18th century, building a plantation economy fueled by African slave labor. After slavery was abolished in the 19th century, the islands transformed into a sanctuary for freed slaves. Today, Black Bahamians account for 90% of the population, which stands at 400,000. After gaining independence as a Commonwealth territory in 1973, the Bahamas quickly emerged as the leading force in Caribbean tourism and offshore finance. With a service-driven economy, it boasts a strong tourism infrastructure that employs nearly 70% of the local population. The islands attract 1.4 million stopover visitors and an astonishing 4.6 million cruise visitors annually, making it a central hub for international tourism. However, the Bahamas is not without its challenges. In 2013, nearly 13% of the population lived below the poverty line, and the Gini coefficient stood at 41.1%, signaling significant inequality. Ranked 57th on the Global Human Development Index, the country's inequality has only worsened over time. By 2019, the Gini coefficient had risen to 57, cementing Bahamas' position as one of the most unequal nations in the Caribbean. In terms of broader GDP, the Bahamas continues to perform exceptionally well. With a nominal GDP nearing $15 billion, it ranks among the wealthiest nations in the Caribbean. The financial sector, which encompasses commercial banks, trust companies, offshore banks, insurance firms, private pension funds, and credit unions, plays a crucial role, contributing nearly 10% to the country's total GDP. Moving on to number 7, we have Jamaica. Jamaica is often synonymous with Bob Marley's reggae, stunning beaches, and its vibrant carnival. But in 2015, the country grabbed global attention for having the best-performing stock exchange in the world. Today, with a GDP surpassing $19 billion, Jamaica's economy is driven by a mix of agriculture, mining, and the manufacturing of food-based products. Jamaica's economy is majorly supported by agriculture, where sugarcane, molasses, and rum remain the backbone of the industry. Other major exports include coconuts, coffee, cacao, and tobacco. In mining, Jamaica stands as one of the world's largest producers of bauxite, while iron ore, gypsum, marble, silica sand, and limestone also play key roles in the nation's resource-driven economy. On the manufacturing side, processed foods, textiles, metal products, and cement make up significant export contributions. The service sector is the largest contributor to the Jamaican economy, with tourism, finance, and trade playing leading roles. Jamaica's strategic location near the Panama Canal positions it perfectly to capitalize on regional trading routes. With 14 seaports and 3 container terminals, experts predict the island will soon become the logistics capital of the Caribbean. Trade alone makes up 1/4 of Jamaica's GDP and employs around 1/6 of the workforce, with these numbers expected to grow as Jamaica invests heavily in infrastructure to strengthen its logistics sector. This focus has already helped reduce the country's public debt from over 140% of GDP in 2013 to 73% in 2024. Despite this progress, Jamaica remains one of the most diversified economies in the Caribbean, with a strong presence across multiple industries. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons to support us. Thank you. Up next at number 6, we have Guyana. Guyana shares a border with oil-rich Venezuela and has been entangled in decades-long territorial disputes over energy deposits. So, when massive oil discoveries were made in the past decade, it wasn't exactly a shock. What is surprising, however, is how quickly Guyana's GDP has skyrocketed. According to IMF projections, Guyana's GDP per capita in PPP terms is set to reach $94,000 by 2025, which will make it the richest territory in the Caribbean in terms of real GDP per capita. Guyana is a fertile land with agricultural and mining potential. But these possibilities have been largely sidelined in favor of the country's estimated 11.2 billion oil-equivalent barrels. In 2022, oil exports accounted for 88% of Guyana's total exports, making it the dominant force in the nation's trade. While sugar, gold, bauxite, shrimp, timber, and rice contribute to the country's non-oil exports, they lack the infrastructure and investment needed to compete with the booming oil industry. Guyana's nominal GDP as of 2024 was slightly under $25 billion, and it will continue to rise in the coming years. However, there are a few possible issues here. Wealth inequality could be a serious issue going forward. Not to mention the economy could implode due to international price shocks like we've repeatedly seen with countries relying heavily on oil exports. Economic diversification should be priority number one for the Guyanese economy moving forward. And now let's enter our top 5 largest Caribbean economies with Haiti at number 5. Haiti surpasses Guyana's GDP by just a few hundred million, but there's a major difference. While Guyana's $25 billion is shared by just 800,000 people, Haiti's $25 billion supports nearly 12 million people. This massive population disparity means that, despite having the same nominal GDP, the economic outlook for the two countries is completely opposite. Haiti has long been recognized as the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and for good reason. This former French colony has been plagued by one disaster after another. The 2010 earthquake seemed like the final blow, a catastrophic event that completely shattered any hope of recovery. Yet, Haiti continued to face hardship with the devastating 2021 earthquake, killing over 2,000 people. Today, more than 96% of the population remains vulnerable to frequent natural disasters, which also heavily impact the country's primary economic driver, agriculture. As of now, Haiti faces severe political instability, violence, food insecurity, and financial instability. In 2023, it had a GDP per capita of $1,700, and its Gini coefficient was 41. In 2024, the economy contracted for the 6th consecutive year. The country is slowly coming apart at the seams, and gangs have taken over major parts of the capital city, Port-au-Prince. Nearly 1.3 million people have been internally displaced due to violence, and more than 5 million Haitians struggle to find food on a daily basis. At number 4 stands Trinidad and Tobago. The territory relies largely on its industrial sector based on oil and gas reserves. The petroleum and petrochemical industries account for nearly 37% of its 26 billion GDP. Ores and mineral fuels are also important exports, but oil and gas typically make up more than 80% of the nation's export earnings. The country's geography plays an important role in this decision as well. The shallow water is perfect for oil and gas production, and Trinidad and Tobago is home to one of the largest natural gas processing facilities in the Western Hemisphere. However, economic diversification has always been a political topic, and the country prides itself on not falling into the resource trap. It is internationally known as an excellent investment site and a robust financial center. These sectors have helped Guyana's economy weather multiple oil shocks successfully. Looking ahead, the government is focused on economic diversification, with a strong emphasis on making tourism a key priority to reduce reliance on oil. Trinidad and Tobago is a high-income economy, and its close relation with the United States gives it a perfect opportunity to offload a lot of its exports. Moving on to number 3, we've got Cuba. Cuba might just be the dark horse on this list. While most Americans associate it with the Cold War, Fidel Castro, and the Cuban Missile Crisis, the country is quietly holding its own with a nominal GDP of $107 billion, making it the 3rd largest economy in the Caribbean. However, this number might be a bit misleading. Cuba operates a massive state-run economy under the strain of US sanctions, producing a wide range of products for local consumption, including pharmaceuticals, cigars, beverages, foodstuffs, machinery, chemicals, and mineral fuels. While the island has a low cost of living and offers subsidized food, education, and healthcare to its citizens, it has plenty of deep-rooted issues. But before we get into that, let's take a short trip down memory lane. In the 19th century, Cuba was one of the fastest-growing economies in the region, thanks to the export of agricultural products. Even after the Cuban Revolution in the 50s, things continued on a semi-upward trajectory. However, when the Berlin Wall fell and the Soviet Union collapsed, Cuba witnessed one of the worst downfalls in modern history. Facing a major economic embargo from Western nations, Cuba has been forced to rely on support from Russia, China, and its fellow sanctioned neighbor Venezuela to keep its economy afloat. Today, this is the third most populous nation in the Caribbean, home to nearly 10 million souls. So, when we look at the GDP per capita in PPP terms, conservative estimates place it above $20,000. While that is definitively very high, Cuba suffers from high inflation, food shortages, and poverty in certain areas. Regardless of its reputation, Cuba is far more prosperous than most people are willing to believe. However, it should be noted that the political constraints of an authoritarian order hold it back from realizing its full potential. And now, at number 2, we have the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic is the more prosperous half of Hispaniola. Sharing the island with Haiti, the country has a tense relationship with its neighbor. Haiti briefly ruled over the Dominicans, which has left long-lasting scars. Today, however, the opposite is true. The Dominican Republic is one of the strongest economies in the region, whereas Haiti is on the brink of social, political, and economic collapse. The Dominican Republic boasts a nominal GDP of $124 billion, ranking it among the top economies in the Caribbean. Even more impressive is its real GDP per capita of $27,000 when divided by the country's 11 million population. The nation's economic growth has been nothing short of extraordinary. Over the past 2 decades, nearly 3 million people have lifted themselves out of poverty, and over 80% of the population now resides in cities. Santo Domingo, the capital, is home to the largest urban population in the entire Caribbean, with 3.1 million people. The economic growth is expected to continue in 2025, with a World Bank projection of a 4% GDP increase. The Dominican economy is quite varied, with mining, manufacturing, tourism, energy, telecommunications, and agriculture all playing their part. Agriculture is one of the major economic sectors of the country, as the Dominican Republic is one of the largest producers and exporters of sugarcane. Cigars, sugarcane, refined petroleum, and bananas are also exported. Working conditions in the Dominican Republic, however, have been scrutinized, especially when it comes to Haitian immigrants. Mining is a big contributor to the economy, and the country is home to the largest gold mine in all of Latin America, the Pueblo Viejo mine. The Dominican Republic also manufactures medical devices, pharmaceuticals, and chemicals. Tourism has also caught up in recent years, adding considerable weight to the balance sheet. Looking at pre-pandemic levels, we find that tourism contributed more than $7 billion to the economy in 2019. However, one interesting source of wealth is remittance. In 2020, the first year of the pandemic, remittances contributed more than $8 billion to the economy. Most of these come from the US, which is the country's strongest trade partner. Despite the recent Trump tariffs, the future of the Dominican Republic's economy looks bright. Finally, we come to our number 1 largest Caribbean economy, Puerto Rico. Located less than 1,000 miles from the coast of Miami, Florida, Puerto Rico is an unincorporated U.S. territory with a population of 3.2 million. This means that the island is privy to all the privileges of American infrastructure without being hampered by most of the socio-political baggage of the mainland. On top of that, it is marketed as a great vacation spot to Americans, further driving up real estate demand and boosting the appeal. The real estate and rental property sector has witnessed a massive spike in recent years, representing nearly 1/5 of the entire GDP. A lot of it also has to do with the island's lax tax policies, which attract a ton of American retirees. All of these advantages contribute to a whopping $125 billion in nominal GDP. However, it is important to note that living standards here remain below the American average. Manufacturing is the biggest driver of the economy, contributing more than 40% of the total GDP. This includes petrochemicals, electronics, aerospace, and other military machinery. Pharmaceuticals and agricultural manufacturing are also key industries with several biotechnology corporations scattered around the map. Puerto Rico is considered the leading bioscience hub in the entire United States and produced around $29 billion in 2022. Meanwhile, tourism, thought to be a major economic factor, is surprisingly low on the list. However, the services sector, which includes finance, trade, and government work in addition to tourism, is the biggest contributing factor to the GDP. With Trump's tariff shaking up regional exports and trade, Puerto Rico is focusing more on the services sector as a hedge against unexpected economic climate. The Caribbean is more than just vacation spots and vibrant cultures. It's a powerhouse of economic innovation. From oil fields fueling Guyana's rise to the tech-driven industries in Puerto Rico, these islands are breaking boundaries and redefining what it means to succeed. While struggles like inequality and natural disasters challenge some, the spirit of resilience and determination is shaping a bold, hopeful future. Now, we'd love to hear your opinion. Which of these countries surprised you the most? And do you believe the Caribbean's future is more focused on oil, tourism, or perhaps something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Also, don't forget to check out our video discussing the best CBI programs in the Caribbean. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the world's most fascinating economies, and share it with someone who still thinks the Caribbean is just beaches and cocktails. Want to stay updated? Hit the notification bell so you never miss a video that changes the way you see the world. This is Caribbean Focus. See you in the next video.